getting the feet. Fred Astaire would always say you got to get the whole body. That's how the audience feels the dance.
Right. Nobody inside that studio expected the room to go silent. Not the producers, not the vocal coaches, not the camera operators, and certainly not members of the Jackson family themselves. A family that has spent decades protecting one of the most legendary legacies in entertainment history. But according to people connected to the production, there was a moment behind the scenes when Jaafar Jackson reportedly stepped into character so completely, so emotionally, and so eerily accurately that several people in the room were left visibly shaken. Some allegedly cried. Others simply stared in disbelief. And for members of the Jackson family, the emotional weight of what they were witnessing may have gone far beyond performance. Because this was not just another actor portraying a global superstar. This was family. This was blood. This was the nephew of Michael Jackson attempting to recreate the life, pain, brilliance, controversy, pressure, and humanity of perhaps the most scrutinized entertainer in modern history. And now, as anticipation builds around the upcoming biographical film Michael, insiders, fans, critics, and longtime observers are all asking the same question. Did Jaafar Jackson just do the impossible? Because according to early reactions from people close to the project, what happened behind the scenes was not simply emotional. It was deeply personal. For some members of the Jackson family, reports suggest it felt less like watching an actor and more like watching Michael himself return to the stage one last time. Tonight, we're taking a deep investigative look into the emotional behind-the-scenes moments surrounding Jaafar Jackson's portrayal of Michael Jackson, the pressure surrounding the film, the divided public reaction, the enormous responsibility of carrying the Jackson legacy, and why this project may ultimately redefine how America remembers one of the most controversial and influential entertainers of all time. And trust us, the deeper this story goes, the more emotional it becomes. To understand why this moment has generated such intense emotional reactions, Americans first have to understand the unbelievable pressure surrounding the Jackson name itself. The Jackson family is not just another celebrity family. In many ways, they represent one of the most culturally important dynasties in entertainment history. From humble beginnings in Gary to dominating global music charts, the story of the Jacksons became intertwined with the story of American pop culture itself. At the center of that legacy, of course, was Michael Jackson. By the 1980s, Michael was no longer simply a successful entertainer. He had become a global phenomenon. Albums like Thriller, Bad, and Dangerous transformed not only music, but the entire structure of the entertainment industry. Music videos became cinematic events. Concert tours became international spectacles. Dance moves became cultural language. Michael Jackson was not just famous. He was mythological, and with that level of fame came unimaginable pressure. Throughout his life, Michael faced relentless media scrutiny, public fascination, invasive tabloid coverage, health speculation, financial controversies, and deeply polarizing allegations that permanently altered public conversations surrounding his legacy. Even years after his death in 2009, debates about Michael Jackson remain intensely emotional and sharply divided across America and around the world. For supporters, he remains one of the greatest artistic innovators who ever lived. For critics, his legacy remains inseparable from controversy. And that is precisely why portraying Michael Jackson on screen was always going to be one of the riskiest projects in modern Hollywood. The film Michael immediately drew enormous attention after it was announced. Directed by Antoine Fuqua and produced with involvement from members of the Jackson estate, the project promised an ambitious look into Michael's life, artistry, struggles, and public battles. But one announcement instantly changed the conversation. The role of Michael Jackson would be played by Jaafar Jackson. For many Americans, Jaafar Jackson was not initially a household name. Yet within entertainment circles, and among longtime Jackson family followers, his resemblance to Michael had already sparked conversation for years. Videos of Jaafar dancing and singing online often triggered stunned reactions from fans who noticed similarities in movement, vocal cadence, facial expressions, and stage energy. Still, resemblance alone would never be enough. Playing Michael Jackson requires more than choreography, more than makeup, more than vocal mimicry. It requires entering one of the most psychologically complicated lives in entertainment history. And that challenge is almost impossible to overstate. Michael Jackson's story includes unimaginable fame at a young age, intense family pressure, artistic genius, racial barriers in the music industry, loneliness, perfectionism, addiction to public approval, media obsession, physical transformation, accusations, isolation, and ultimately tragedy. Any actor attempting this role would face enormous expectations. But Jaafar Jackson faced something even more difficult. He had to portray his own uncle. That emotional reality changed everything. Because unlike most actors studying a historical figure, Jaafar reportedly grew up around stories, memories, emotions, and family experiences connected directly to Michael Jackson as a person, not simply Michael Jackson as an icon. That distinction matters. America often discusses Michael Jackson in extremes. To some, he is untouchable musical royalty. To others, he is one of the most controversial celebrities of all time. But inside the Jackson family, Michael was also a brother, son, uncle, relative, and human being. And according to people close to the production, that emotional closeness reportedly shaped Jaafar's entire preparation process. Reports suggest he approached the role not as impersonation, but as emotional reconstruction. That difference may explain why early reactions from people on set became so emotional, because sources connected to the film have described moments where Jaafar's transformation reportedly became unsettlingly real. Some claimed his voice patterns, movement timing, eye contact, and emotional intensity reminded them so strongly of Michael that it became difficult to separate performance from memory. For family members who spent decades grieving Michael's death, those moments may have carried enormous emotional weight, especially considering the history surrounding Michael Jackson's final years. By the time Michael prepared for the ill-fated This Is It concerts before his death in 2009, the singer had become both globally celebrated and deeply isolated. Public fascination surrounding his appearance, health, finances, and legal troubles intensified constantly. Then came the shocking news that stunned the world. Michael Jackson died on June 25, 2009. The emotional impact was immediate and historic. Fans gathered outside hospitals. Vigils formed across cities worldwide. News coverage dominated television networks for days. Millions watched memorial tributes. Social media exploded globally. For many Americans, it felt like the end of an era. Inside the Jackson family, however, it was something even more devastating. It was personal loss. And that loss has continued to echo through every major conversation surrounding Michael Jackson ever since, which is why the making of this biographical film carries such unusual emotional gravity. This is not simply Hollywood revisiting a famous life story for profit. For the Jackson family, reports suggest the project may also represent an attempt to preserve memory, reclaim narrative control, and humanize Michael beyond decades of headlines and controversy. That objective alone guarantees intense reactions from the public, because any portrayal of Michael Jackson immediately enters dangerous territory. Too flattering, and critics accuse the project of becoming propaganda. Too harsh, and supporters accuse it of exploitation. Too cautious, and audiences lose emotional authenticity. Too aggressive, and the film risks reigniting painful debates. Jaafar Jackson therefore stands at the center of one of the most emotionally and culturally sensitive entertainment projects in recent memory, And according to reports from behind the scenes, the emotional toll may already be showing. As filming for Michael continued, rumors surrounding Jaafar Jackson's performance began spreading rapidly online. Photos from the set quickly went viral. Fans across America reacted with shock after seeing side-by-side comparisons between Jaafar and Michael during recreated performance scenes. In certain images, the resemblance appeared almost surreal. Costuming, posture, facial structure, and movement patterns reportedly created moments where viewers said they genuinely felt transported back to the 1980s and 1990s. But according to individuals discussing the production, the most emotional moments reportedly happened when cameras were not rolling publicly. Sources connected to the project have suggested there were occasions where members of the Jackson family visited the set and witnessed scenes being recreated from Michael's life. Those moments allegedly became intensely emotional. Particularly difficult were reportedly scenes recreating iconic live performances and deeply personal family interactions. One of the reasons these reactions matter so much is because the Jackson family has spent years navigating the complicated emotional legacy surrounding Michael's death and public image. Seeing a younger family member suddenly embody Michael's appearance, voice, gestures, and emotional energy may have triggered deeply buried grief. Several entertainment commentators noted that this dynamic makes Jaafar's role uniquely psychologically demanding. Imagine carrying not only audience expectations, but also the emotional expectations of your own family. Imagine portraying someone whose memory still deeply affects relatives in private settings. Imagine trying to honor a global icon while avoiding caricature. That balancing act may explain why early reports surrounding Jaafar's dedication have drawn such attention. Accounts from people connected to the production suggest Jaafar underwent extensive preparation involving vocal study, movement coaching, physical conditioning, and emotional immersion into Michael's life and performances. But what reportedly impressed people most was not technical mimicry. It was emotional vulnerability. Sources claimed there were moments where Jaafar's emotional intensity reportedly affected crew members during filming. Some described scenes becoming unexpectedly heavy because of how closely they reflected real-life pain experienced by the Jackson family. This matters because biographical films often struggle with authenticity. Audiences can usually sense when performances feel artificial or exaggerated. But according to early reactions circulating online, many people connected to this project believe Jaafar may have approached the role from a place of genuine emotional connection rather than performance imitation. That distinction could dramatically shape public reception once the film releases. Still, the production remains surrounded by controversy and skepticism. Critics argue that any Michael Jackson biopic inevitably faces accusations of selective storytelling due to the polarizing allegations surrounding his legacy. Advocacy groups and critics have already questioned whether the film will adequately address controversies that divided public opinion for decades. Others worry the project could become emotionally manipulative or overly protective of Michael's image. Supporters, however, argue that Michael Jackson's artistic contributions and personal humanity deserve serious cinematic examination rather than simplistic tabloid reduction. This divide has already transformed the film into one of the most culturally debated entertainment projects in America, and that debate intensified further as more behind-the-scenes stories emerged. Some reports suggested that family members witnessing Jaafar's portrayal became emotional because certain scenes reportedly mirrored private memories too closely. Others described moments where crew members allegedly paused filming because the emotional atmosphere became overwhelming. While not every rumor can be independently verified, the consistency of these reactions across entertainment discussions has fueled enormous public curiosity, particularly among longtime Michael Jackson fans. For those fans, the possibility of seeing Michael's energy recreated by a biological family member carries profound emotional significance. Many supporters believe Only someone within the Jackson family could potentially capture Michael's emotional complexity authentically. Others strongly disagree, arguing emotional closeness could compromise objectivity. And that tension sits at the heart of this entire project, because the film is not merely entertainment. It is cultural memory warfare. Who gets to define Michael Jackson's story? The tabloids? Critics? Fans? Hollywood? His family? The answer remains deeply contested, and Jaafar Jackson has now become the human face of that battle. Entertainment historians say few performers in history present a challenge comparable to Michael Jackson. The difficulty is not simply musical, it is psychological. Michael Jackson existed simultaneously as artist, product, symbol, victim, innovator, celebrity, fantasy figure, and cultural obsession. Public perceptions of him shifted dramatically across decades, often influenced by media narratives, legal developments, and generational attitudes. For an actor, portraying that complexity requires navigating extreme contradictions. Michael was shy yet globally dominant, childlike yet intensely perfectionistic, fragile yet commercially unstoppable, admired yet relentlessly scrutinized. This duality is what makes the role extraordinarily dangerous from an artistic standpoint. Film analysts note that music biopics frequently fail because they reduce legendary figures into cliches. Audiences either receive sanitized hero worship or exaggerated scandal dramatization. But reports surrounding Jaafar's performance suggest the filmmakers may be attempting something more emotionally nuanced. Industry observers have particularly focused on the emotional credibility brought by family connection. Normally, biographical performances rely on external research. Actors study interviews, recordings, documentaries, and public footage. Jaafar Jackson reportedly brought something different, inherited emotional memory, that could either elevate the performance dramatically or create accusations of emotional bias. From a media perspective, the stakes are enormous. Hollywood has seen massive success from music-centered biographical films in recent years. Movies centered around iconic entertainers have generated billions in revenue and reignited interest in legendary artists across streaming platforms, radio, and social media. But Michael Jackson represents a uniquely volatile case because his legacy remains unresolved in public consciousness. Legal analysts point out that while Michael Jackson was acquitted in court during his lifetime regarding criminal charges brought against him, public debate surrounding allegations against him has never disappeared. Documentaries, interviews, fan campaigns, and media investigations continue shaping competing narratives. That means this film enters an already emotionally charged. Some viewers will approach it hoping for redemption. Others will approach it expecting revisionism. And many will simply want answers. The emotional reports surrounding Jaafar Jackson therefore matter because they suggest the film may prioritize emotional immersion rather than detached biography. If audiences emotionally connect with Jaafar's portrayal, public conversations surrounding Michael Jackson could shift dramatically yet again, not necessarily toward consensus, but toward renewed emotional engagement. Media experts also note another fascinating factor: generational memory. Younger Americans did not experience Michael Jackson's cultural dominance in real time. For many Gen Z viewers, their understanding of Michael comes primarily through internet clips, documentaries, controversies, memes, and retrospective commentary. This film, therefore, has the potential to introduce Michael Jackson's story to an entirely new generation through cinematic storytelling rather than fragmented online discourse. That is incredibly powerful and potentially incredibly risky, because whoever controls narrative framing often influences historical memory. The internet reacted almost immediately after behind-the-scenes images and emotional reports began circulating on platforms across America. Users posted side-by-side comparisons showing Jaafar Jackson and Michael Jackson during iconic performance moments. Thousands of comments expressed disbelief over the resemblance. Some users called it haunting, others called it beautiful, and some admitted the images genuinely made them emotional. Particularly viral were reactions from longtime Michael Jackson fans who claimed seeing Jaafar dressed as Michael triggered memories of childhood, family gatherings, old concerts, and the era when Michael Jackson dominated global entertainment culture. But social media conversations quickly became divided. Supporters praised Jaafar's apparent dedication and argued the emotional reactions from the Jackson family demonstrated authenticity. Critics questioned whether emotional resemblance alone should justify a major biographical project surrounding such a controversial public figure. Others argued the film risks reopening painful public debates that never fully healed. This polarization reflects broader American cultural tensions surrounding celebrity legacy itself. Can society separate artistic achievement from controversy? Should emotional storytelling influence historical judgment? Who owns cultural memory? Fans? Victims? Families? Media institutions? The intense online reaction surrounding Jaafar Jackson demonstrates how unresolved these questions remain. Interestingly, many younger users who previously felt disconnected from Michael Jackson discussions suddenly became curious after seeing footage and photos of Jaafar's transformation. Entertainment analysts say this may significantly expand public attention surrounding the film, because regardless of opinion, emotional curiosity drives viewership, and emotional curiosity is exactly what this project now generates. If Jaafar Jackson's performance succeeds critically and emotionally, the consequences could extend far beyond one movie. It could fundamentally reshape public conversations surrounding Michael Jackson for years. Hollywood insiders already believe the film has potential to become one of the most commercially successful music biopics ever released due to the extraordinary global fascination surrounding Michael Jackson's life. But success will ultimately depend on trust. Will audiences believe the portrayal feels emotionally truthful? Will critics accept the film as balanced? Will younger viewers engage with Michael Jackson's story differently afterward? Those questions remain unanswered. For Jaafar Jackson personally, the stakes are life-changing. A successful performance could instantly transform him into a major Hollywood figure, but failure could bring enormous backlash and intense scrutiny, because audiences will not judge him merely as an actor. They will judge him against a legend. And legends are dangerous comparisons, particularly within the Jackson family legacy, where expectations are almost impossibly high. Still, some entertainment commentators believe Jaafar may possess one advantage no outside actor ever could: emotional proximity. Whether audiences ultimately embrace or reject the film, reports suggest one thing is already undeniable: the emotional impact inside the Jackson family appears real, and that reality may become the most powerful aspect of the entire project. Perhaps the most heartbreaking aspect of this story is not celebrity, controversy, or even Hollywood pressure. It is grief, because beneath all the headlines, debates, and viral reactions sits a family still living with loss. For viewers, Michael Jackson often exists as iconography: moonwalks, music videos, scandals, interviews, performances. But for relatives, he was someone they knew personally, someone whose absence permanently changed family life. Imagine watching a younger family member suddenly recreate the physical presence of someone you lost. The same smile, the same posture, the same voice patterns, the same eyes. Reports suggest that emotional reality may explain why some behind-the-scenes moments became overwhelming for family members. Grief often returns unexpectedly, sometimes through music, sometimes through memory, and sometimes through seeing echoes of someone you thought you would never see again. That emotional layer gives this story extraordinary depth beyond entertainment headlines. Because regardless of where Americans stand on Michael Jackson's legacy, the emotional reality surrounding family memory remains deeply human. And perhaps that is why so many people are emotionally invested already. Not simply because of celebrity fascination, but because almost everyone understands what it means to miss someone,